start us live.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. And then you can change the.
Good to go?
We are on, Donnie.
Okay.
Thanks.
It is 6:40 on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. We're going to call the regular council meeting to order. Ms. Monroe, if you'd like to call the roll.
Yes. Mayor Don Barnard,
Here.
Tiffany Hollis,
Here.
Ryan Green,
Here.
Jeff Barr,
Present.
Wes Coble,
Here.
Dave Seelan,
Here.
Bob Orsini.
Here.
If you could please stand for the invocation.
Let us pray. Lord God, we do thank you for the opportunity to gather here this evening. Lord, I thank you for each and every council member who's here and everyone who's here to serve. Lord, we thank you for their willingness and their heart to serve. Lord, and we pray that even as they enter into this meeting tonight, Lord, we know that you go before all things. You know all things. And so, Lord, we pray that you would just prepare their hearts and minds to deal with whatever action items are on the agenda. And, Lord, that above all else, that they might seek your will and that your will would be done. It is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Be seated for a moment. So every March, Women's History Month is celebrated. Women's History Month is observed annually to recognize, honor, and celebrate the achievements and contributions of women throughout history. It serves as a platform to shed light on the often overlooked stories of women who have played pivotal roles in shaping societies, economies, and cultures. For both council meetings in March, we have invited Girl Scout Troop 7700 to lead the city of Johnstown in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys would like to come up and introduce the girls.
So I'm Tiffany McGo. I'm one of the leaders of our troop. We have 22 girls ranging from kindergarten up to 4th grade. So that would be Daisy year 1 up to juniors year 1. And we'll let them introduce themselves as we go down the line to Bethany. Go ahead. Just say your name.
My name is Emily McGill.
The Pledge of Allegiance will make you cry. I know. Are you ready?
My name is Charlie Harden. My name is Emma. My name is Joel. My name is Steven. My name is Shanna. My name is Morgan. My name is my name is Ethan. My name is Isabel. My name is Sophia.
Thank you, girls. If everyone can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and the girls will lead us.
All right. Morgan and Jewel. I
Thank you guys so much.
Great job, ladies.
Yes, very good job.
follow him.
We should do this every session. Well, thank you, ladies, for coming. We're going to move to our agenda. We're actually adding an item, approval of agenda. And with that approval of agenda, we need to make one change to the agenda for tonight. It is under 11, it will be 11E. It's going to be the introduction, emergency introduction of ordinance 1024. That will be 11E. And that is the only change I have besides the addition of the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
We're all in favor of the change?
Yes.
Yes.
Unopposed?
Okay. March is Developmental Disabilities Month, and Ms. Hollis, President of Council, is going to read a proclamation in honor of that.
Okay, Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Whereas true community works best when we support one another. Although each of us is unique and on a unique journey in life, we can all accomplish more when we work together. And whereas Licking County residents with disabilities are friends, neighbors, coworkers, peers, when they have access to resources that help them thrive, our entire community benefits. And whereas for more than 55 years, the Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities has been helping people with disabilities and their families make connections to services and supports they need. And whereas the board supports people throughout their lives from birth through adulthood, Their agency often serves as a guide, helping people navigate their next steps. Therefore, I, Tiffany Hollis, President of Johnstown City Council, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month and present this proclamation to the Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities on behalf of the more than 2,500 people they support. Anytime we can help connect people around us to resources and opportunities, we send a message that they aren't alone in their journey. We appreciate their contributions to our community as we continue to move forward toward a brighter future. As a mother of someone with a developmental disability, I very much appreciate the Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities and fully support this proclamation.
Thank you. Next on the agenda tonight is action on minutes. We have two sessions here, the February 20th, 2024 council meeting and the February 27th, 2024 special council work session. Anyone have any changes or additions to these two sets of minutes? Hearing none, do we have any action?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Both in a block. Tiffany Hollis,
Yes.
Mayor Bardock,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Dave Seeland,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Affirm.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Awesome. Do we have any citizens' comments on matters not on the agenda tonight?
I don't have any speakers left.
Okay. We'll move to council committee reports. The first was planning and zoning. Their February 27th meeting was canceled. Their next is March 12th at 6:30 in the council chambers. Design Review Board was also canceled on February 27th, and their next will be on March 12th at 5 p.m. in the council chambers. Finance met tonight. Our next meeting is on March 20th at 5 p.m. We worked over a couple different things, nothing to report to the council tonight about. Safety and Service, they met tonight. Their next is on April 2nd at 5:45. Does anyone have anything from that meeting?
Yeah, very brief meeting. We did talk about a couple neighborhoods and taking over the roads for those.
Anything else?
Nothing to report this time.
Okay. Economic Development, they met on February 26th. Their next meeting will be as needed. Is there anything to report from that meeting?
Not currently, no.
Director reports. We received the director reports for water, sewer, street, and director. Is there any questions for water, sewer, or street at this time?
I had a question.
Yes.
I know it was a rough week to be a fire hydrant in town there. I was just kind of curious, Jack, with some of those repairs that were done, is there a dollar amount attached to those?
Yes, the one at the school, I think we were around $5,000. Was that, yeah, just under 5,000. Of course, that would be billed to the individual's insurance that hit that hydrant. The one up in Advanced Auto, I don't have those numbers accumulated yet because we had a lot of expense and trouble there. Actually, more work has to be done there, but it will obviously be planned work. We were able to get the water to stop running, which was the #1 key. But I don't have a price on that one. But of course, the city, that was just infrastructure that's aged and come apart. So the city will have to cover that. But the one up by the school will be turned in for insurance and we should be refunded.
Okay.
Anybody else with questions for those three reports? Hearing none. Jack, would you like to give your report?
Yes, I'll get through here relatively quickly. The water department, new plant, no change at this time, still design work going on. Wastewater plant update, grading in the CMARs is going to be completed by 3/8. Actually, I met with the other two plant superintendents, Terry Nichols and Rick Fitch, and we completed those CMAR gradings today, so they will be turned back into the engineer. East Jersey project, we're just waiting on the as-built drawings, and that street will be ready to be brought to council for acceptance. The same with Pulte, as-built drawings, we're getting very close on those after talking with Pulte, so hopefully we'll see those next month. Concord Crossing, currently Concord Crossing East, for the month of February, not much work was being done. The construction company pulled off. There's a couple house starts in there, but as far as city infrastructure, they were laid off for February. The same with the Coughlin Apartments on Leafy Dale. Not much work was done during the month of February. Bring you up to date on snow events in February. Approximately 60 tons of salt was put down and 500 gallons of brine was applied to those 2 snow events. Something new on here, I'm gonna bring you up to date. We talked about getting the new leak equipment, so we are starting the leak surveys over town. I'm happy to let you know that the whole entire Rolling Meadows development was surveyed and no leaks were detected in that entire section. So that was good news. But number 9 is was brought up a little bit briefly. On February 26th, we had 2 major leaks. We had a watch valve come apart at the hydrant in front of Advanced Auto, and then we did have a hydrant hit up by the school just past the intersection of West Douglas and South William Street. It took an additional 6 hours, just as a reference, in the plant to catch up with water was lost, about 250,000 gallons of water. Boiler was required on the State Route 62 repair. We had to do some extensive shutting down to get the water flow slow enough that we could actually work on the line. All bacteria tests came back safe, and the boiler was lifted on February 28th. Any questions on any of those projects?
Quick question. With that, losing that 250,000 gallons of water, it went down the drain
Yes, it did.
and back to the sewer plant, correct?
Some of them went to storm drains, which
Okay.
would not go to the sewer plant. A matter of fact, a majority of that water went to the storm drains, did not go to the sewer plant.
Okay.
They would have ended up eventually in Raccoon Creek,
Recharging.
Recharging the water.
recharging.
Brings those tests down, probably better results. Anybody else with questions for Mr. Liggett? Okay.
Thank you.
We have no tabled legislation tonight. We'll move to public hearings of legislation. The first is ordinance 06-2024, an ordinance to amend chapter 921 of the City of Johnstown's codified ordinances. We did the first reading of this 2 weeks ago, so this is the second reading. Sean, if you'd like to explain it real quick, and then we'll go to citizens' comments.
Sure. Really, at this time, I'll just open it up for questions from council. You all discussed this quite heavily. This is something that Teresa and Shelley kind of brought together. So it talks about the collection charge for whenever we have a shut-off. It also talks about a minimum billing situation where they're not required to pay a penalty. So, like I said, we kind of went through all these last week. I don't want to bore you with the same details, unless there's a question, obviously.
Anybody with questions for Mr. Standard on this?
I have a question, but it's not particular to this particular ordinance. In other places of employment, on less important legislation where it's just rubber stamping things because we read, can we bulk them all for like consent agenda? Like, so if there was 3 or 4 items that needed our passing and they're not controversial, they're not adversely impacting our budget, et cetera, is there a way to streamline our process that on these?
They all have to have a second reading, like tonight,
I understand
and they
that.
all have to be open up for citizens' comments.
I understand that.
I mean,
I'll defer to the clerk of council
Yeah, I'm not
for
familiar
that.
with that, honestly.
So I would encourage you to look at, I know City of Gahanna has such things where, again, they're, on a scale of 0 to 10, it only might be a 1 or 2 as far as level of importance. It really just truly is administrative things for the city to function. So there's not a lot of public comment. I know you gotta have public comment, but their clerk may give you a little better.
Are you talking about passing legislation like in bulk?
In block?
I'll give it for instance, and
Go if you've got
forgive
a
me
better
if
explanation.
if I give it incorrectly. So I think sometimes you'll do, for an example, the minutes. We'll take them in a block. Is there a situation where you could do a block of ordinances all at once in order to expedite them rather than going through each specific ordinance? Is that in
Yeah.
paraphrase? Okay.
What if somebody votes no or doesn't, I mean?
My word of caution is that, I mean, minutes are minutes, it's a factual piece, they can always go back to the minutes of a meeting or a recording of the meeting, correct?
Yes.
And my word of caution about packaging ordinances is I would just be afraid of the perception of the public to say, what are you trying to pass in a package? So if it costs us an extra 5 or 10 minutes to sit up here and manage these ordinances as they come about in the menu fashion one at a time, I'm okay with that extra 5 to 10 minutes. I would just worry about the perception of trying to pass as a package and what is actually in that package. I think keeping a little bit of public trust is a good thing here.
Valid concern, it's all in paper, and I'm just one person speaking.
We can talk about this more in general, or other business tonight.
Into a little-
Yeah, or have Teresa talk about
I've
it.
never heard of passing legislation.
Okay. So any questions on this ordinance 06/2020-24 from council? Hearing none. Citizens' comments on this? Do any citizens have any comments on this ordinance? Okay, there are none. Is there any desire for council with this ordinance?
Make a motion to pass ordinance 06.
Second. Oh, sorry, Bob, I cut you off.
Pass ordinance 06/2024 as written.
Jeff Barr, second.
I'll second.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Jeff Blau,
Affirm.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Les Cobble,
Yes.
Dave Sealand.
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on to ordinance 07/2024. An ordinance to amend chapter 107 of the City of Johnstown Codified Ordinances. Again, this is the second reading of this ordinance. We'll open it up for council questions after Mr. Stainert gives a brief introduction.
So I'll pivot from my last conversation due to what Mr. Councilman Seelan brought up, and forgive me for my last abbreviated version. Sometimes I forget there's audience members, and I want to make sure that there's an understanding. It was discussed last week, but maybe our audience members couldn't tune in for that particular session. So I'll give the very boilerplate for the last one. Took the shut-off fee from 25 to 50, just for clarity on the last one. And then with this one, ordinance 07/2024, what it's doing is it's increasing the bid amount. We're actually going to reference ORC so that we don't have to do this on a yearly basis to be consistent with the ORC. We will just reference their wording and their documents, and that will make Teresa's job and my job a little bit easier. For a quick fact, it takes it from 50 to 75, and then each year there's a graduated increase through the ORC, which will allow for those minimum bid awardings to be a little bit higher each year to year. Any questions?
Any questions made by council?
Mr.
Bob?
And just as we were trying to explain things to the public, this gives the village manager position a little more flexibility on the total dollar amount required to come to council for approval, but it does not remove the village manager's position to be at-will employee of the council, so there is still a level of oversight to where if something would be abused or done inappropriately, there could, the threat of termination would probably be a pretty good measuring factor.
And it sets the standard the same as the
And it sets the
state.
state of Ohio. I just want to make sure that raising it $25,000 doesn't get misinterpreted as council loses visibility on it, because we don't. We just don't have to stop everything and go through the process for approval.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yes.
add to that? Just as another caveat from a protectionary standpoint, appreciate, my head's on the chopping block as well, but
The village manager position, you just happen to be in it.
absolutely. These funds would have to be appropriated through council, so it couldn't be a situation where I say, hey, we got extra funds. All of these appropriations have to be done through council. What it does is it takes the necessary piece that if anything goes over 50,000, we have to get multiple bids on that. If it's now under 75,000, we no longer have to go through that process. That process can be a little bit time consuming, but I want to preface, those funds are already allocated by council. It's not a situation where I can just pull money out of a hat and redirect it to a specific piece. As much as I appreciate, not my head, but the position's head, I would not want to put my job in jeopardy and do that either. So just for clarity.
Okay, anybody else in council with questions, comments? Okay, open it up to citizens. Do you guys have any questions or comments on this item? Okay. What is council's desire for this ordinance 07-2024?
Make a motion to pass as read, resolution 2024-12.
I'll second.
Jeff Parr,
Affirm.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis,
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Dave Spellin,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Hate to be a stickler, but it's ordinance 07-2024.
I'm sorry, I did read the
2020,
wrong
you're
page.
one ahead,
You were
that's
squirming over there.
You're one
supposed to
ahead.
You just,
cut me
you
off.
just went
We're on
ahead.
07.
So we would, I think we would approve the next one, but
This vote, yes.
It's for
is
07.
ordinance 07-2024.
Ordinance
Thank you.
07,
Yes.
2024.
That's the one I was
I
on.
motion to pass ordinance 07-2024 as read.
Do I need to reread?
It's up to you, you're the.
I counted
Not
the vote
resolution.
that we
Ordinance.
just had for ordinance 07-2024.
Okay, perfect.
Bob, did you vote?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. When we passed the agenda a few minutes ago, I put it as, the ordinance is E, so we're going to do two resolutions and go to an ordinance, so it was my error on that. So we're going to move to Resolution 2024-12. This resolution is required by ORC 709-023C, setting forth municipal services that will be provided to 5 acres of land in Monroe Township, Licking County, Ohio, if annexed to the city of Johnstown, Ohio. This is another annexation into the city of Johnstown. Mr. Standard, would you like to explain where this is and what it is?
Sure. I'll give the real quick brief. Very similar to the last situation that occurred during the annexation of the roughly 200 acres. Some of that already existed. In totality, it was about a 400-acre development, but only about 200 acres needed to be annexed into the city. So this is, I love this term, so I'll use it now, and it's not a technical term. Call it kind of the missing teeth that exist in that development. So they're little parcels that kind of are etched out, and what's happening here is those pieces of land are actually coming in, kind of folding into the development as a whole. So in your ordinance, it does specify, and in your packet, you do have a visualization on this one, page 37 of 60, but obviously that's not accurate. Exhibit B, annexation of 5 acres. For this particular example, it's the Hamparian. This is the piece right off of Duncan Plains. And if you want, we can get a visual on a map, but there is a little bit of a map that's associated with it up in your right-hand corner of Exhibit B that kind of gives you that visual. So this is going to be a similar conversation, not only with this particular resolution, but the resolution following it. And the applicant is here if you need any further explanation. Like I said, just it's a continuation of what happened some months prior.
This is across street from our industrial park over there?
Correct. This particular one. There's another one that is in a little bit different location, and that map is. These were off of Clover Valley.
Okay. Okay.
The first one is off Duncan Plains.
Correct.
On the other side.
Opposite, yes.
I found the first one. This is the second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is on this map. Okay, after Mr. Standard's explanation on this, does anyone on council have any discussion, questions, or comments on this annexation? Any citizens' comments on this item? Okay, what was council's desire to do with this resolution?
We have to motion it second, then there'd be discussion.
We can have discussion now if you'd like. Once you make the motion and second, it should go to vote.
So there's opportunity for discussion
Yeah, I just asked, do you have any?
Before the vote.
Yeah,
before the vote
yeah.
and before the motion.
Yes. Correct.
Okay. I'm not saying I want to discuss, I'm just making sure we have the opportunity to
Okay,
discuss.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-12 as,
Second.
Albertini,
yes.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Dave Seaman.
Yes.
Okay, going to resolution 2024-13, a resolution that's required by ORC 709.023C, setting forth municipal services that will be provided to the 4 acres of land in Monroe Township, Licking County, Ohio, if annexed to the city of Johnstown, Ohio. Sean explained this one as the second piece, the second missing set of missing teeth. It's on Clover Valley, correct?
Correct. Clover Valley,
Anything additional with this one?
no, only just that this is the first piece of the process. I will also want to reiterate, it's not annexed after you all make your motions. There's a process that it has to go through. This is the first step of that process. Actually, that process started with Teresa. They had to file it, then it gets introduced to you all, and then there's a time period that elapses, and then a greater conversation, and then final annexation. Unless I'm missing anything, Mr. McNally.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council members? Any discussion? Hearing none. Any comments from the citizens? Okay. Council's desire to move on resolution 2024-13.
Motion to pass as read.
A second.
Jeff Barr,
Affirm.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis,
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Dave Seaman,
Yes.
Albertini.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to move back to the ordinances now. This is ordinance 10-2024, an ordinance amending ordinance 24-2023, the annual appropriation ordinance of the city of Johnstown to approve necessary changes of appropriation and declare an emergency. Mr. Delaney, would you like to speak about this? Explain it.
Thank you. This was discovered when we were doing payroll this past, last week, actually. Regarding the PRS and the sewer operating fund, formula in our budget was incorrectly done. So it was supposed to be 14%, and it was some odd number through a formula. So we need to appropriate the $42,100 in the sewer fund only.
This does not affect general fund. It's just,
No, it's not the general fund, it's just the sewer fund. And
And-
that fund actually has, currently with the budget, we have a $1,180,000 carryover at the end of the year projected, so this will go into that 1.180.
okay.
It's coming out of the fund to pay for the PERS because we miscalculated the 14% for the retirement benefit of the employees in the sewer.
Sewer up.
That's classified in there.
Correct.
And how'd we miss that?
Actually, in the budget, they were all formulated throughout different buckets, and for some reason, it was not, the formula was incorrect. And how we discovered it was going through payroll this last time, and the amount was too low to cover the amount.
So with the 42,100, it goes from what to what?
Approximately 15,000 to 56,000.
I'm troubled how we missed that. I realize it's an error and things happen, but
We're working, Dave and I are working on a new budget workbook for this year. The budget workbook that we've had for years, I've had issues with it, so I think with the new budget workbook, we're going to be able to see issues caught issues better in future years.
Did we scrub all the other accounts with PERS that they're all correctly formulated?
We'll go back through all of them again to make sure, because really the one, there's 4 accounts: streets, sewer, and water in general.
Okay. But you said we have scrubbed those to make sure that those formulas are correct.
Okay. Anybody else with questions on this? Anyone else? Okay. Open up to citizens' comments. Do you guys have any questions or comments? Hearing none. So since this is an emergency, it will be the initial reading and second reading all in one?
Yes, a motion to
We have
waive
to make a motion, yeah.
Does it
we
need
have
to be
make
in
a motion
the
first?
first reading, second reading?
both.
Okay.
What would council like to do?
Actually, it's an appropriation ordinance and they're
Yeah, it
effective
goes into effect,
immediately.
that's why I wondered, I don't,
Yeah.
just point of
So
order.
just waive the second reading.
You don't, it's not, it would not be an emergency. Financial situations, financial ordinances do not take 30 days to go into effect. This needs to go into effect relatively quickly, obviously for payroll purposes. But any financial ordinance goes into effect immediately. It's not a 30-day waiting period like all the other ordinances. So you would only need to waive the second reading, and then
So do we
by
even-
default, it goes into effect.
So did we even need the emergency language on here?
I
It really
don't
didn't.
believe you do.
I can make that edit and just,
And just so everybody knows, it's not like we don't have the money. With the governmental accounting, you have to appropriate the funds. So you have to say, hey, we're giving you this amount of money to spend during the year. Not like a normal business where you just have the funds, you spend it. This is you have to appropriate the funds from one bucket to another. Not enough funds were appropriated from the reserves to the budget for this year, so it's just moving the additional funds to be spent this year. Okay, so what would council like to do on this?
So we don't really have a choice, do we?
There, folks, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, the state's gonna get our money one way or another, or the retirement fund.
Teresa, point of order. We first reading and approval and then waive second, or we waive?
Waive the second
waive
reading
second
first.
I make a motion to waive the requirement of a second reading of ordinance,
1024.
10, yeah, thank you. 10-2024.
A second.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Affirm.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Steve Sealand.
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion that we pass ordinance 10-2024 as written.
A second.
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
No,
I'm gonna remove the emergency language.
Okay.
that
I'm-
was in it.
I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance 10-2024, deleting the line and declaring an emergency.
And a second.
All right. Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Steve Sealand,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Affirm.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Okay. So we are done through our public hearings of legislation. We're going to move to our introduction of legislation. These are two ordinances. They will be just the first reading tonight, so there'll be no voting on these. We can have some discussion on these tonight, but they are just the first reading. The first is ordinance 08-2024, an ordinance to amend Chapter 1187 of the City of Johnstown Codified Ordinances. Mr. Stainer, is this the sign one or is it the second one?
If this is 08, this is solar panels?
That's right. Okay, if you could explain the solar panel issue.
Sure. So, a little bit of background. This, I cannot remember, forgive me, I cannot remember if we discussed this at council or not. I attend a variety of meetings, but I can tell you, we did bring this up at the design review board. The reason it came up there is because it's in section 1187, which is specifically for the design review board, COA. Right now, we have solar panels that are in the environmental change minor category, which then falls under my purview. We had a little bit of discussion at that meeting where solar panels are seeming to be a little bit more popular. And that decision falling on me without any real guidance given in the code, I wanted to insulate myself from a bad decision, not reflecting maybe necessarily what council or a board would like. Ideally, I wanted to actually scratch the allowability of solar panels in the meantime until we did get some provisions, not only for my sake, but for the design review board's referenceability. And then obviously keeping it there permanently. When I did some research, there's a Senate Bill 61, which was passed. Give me a moment. By Ohio Senate. Ohio Senate Bill 61 signed into law. This looks like it took place. Can't give you the date, but it was actually rather 2022 it would look like. What this does is it prohibits HOAs from banning solar panels outright. My assumption would be that if Senate Bill 61 did this from an HOA perspective, they probably have it in some level at our ability as well. So without digging deeper into this, to kind of move this forward in some direction, in the meantime, instead of banning it outright, went ahead and moved it into environmental change minor or major. And those particular environmental changes have to go through the design review board to at least get some review from that design review board, allow them to kind of vet the process. I would like to have something for them to lean back on. Unfortunately, at this time, we don't. I think that's part of the exercise we're going through. We discussed at the last work session, how do we get those things in place? But at a minimum, I wanted to kick them there instead of having them just land in the minor category. Senate Bill 61, I think is going to run into some challenges if we just outright ban them. And I am not in the business right now of inundating the city with frivolous items that I think, in the grand scheme of things, we've got bigger fish to fry. So pivoting a little bit, that's the short explanation. Maybe it was a long explanation, but to give you all the background that I have, that's why instead of banning them, we're now at the environmental change major.
So in brief, you're basically, by moving them from minor to major, you're taking the decision away from you making a decision if they're allowed or not and putting it on design review board. Is that correct?
Correct. And my hope is that during that process, whenever these applicants do a presentation to design review board, that we'll be able to start to build some type of standard, and through that conversation, get a general idea of what that board's comfortable with. Obviously, a recommendation to council, what you're comfortable with. And then we'll have something that we can codify at a later date so that we can say, hey, can you have a ground cover of 85% of your property? Maybe not. Can you have 30% ground coverage? Maybe. Location of it has to be 5 feet away from the property line. I did find a tremendous amount of information from other municipalities. I have that. It's Westerville, Worthington, Bexley, Dublin, and I was able to actually get all of their codified ordinances all in one spot. And I did do some research, and it looked like none of them had a ban in place either. So that's what's leading me down this road of, I don't know that we can outright ban them at the current moment. So they'll have a lot to go through, and whenever these applications do come up, I'll give this information that I've gotten from all these other municipalities for that board to kind of review and pick and pull what their flavor and their desirability is. But I don't want to bog you guys down with going through that minutia process at the current moment. Like I said, there's a variety of other items that we've got to get to, and I don't know that solar panels checks the box as the number one item that we need to really address in a council setting. So
Again, this is the first reading of it. Anybody have any questions for Sean tonight on this?
So essentially what this is doing is it's taking it from one set of eyes to the set of eyes as a group and open for discussion upon design review board to say whether it's on the roof or in someone's yard, what's the appropriateness of this?
And I love the way you put that, yes. And I'm hoping what it'll do is start to build a precedent, so that way we can lean on that from the next decision and the next decision. Really, at this point in time, there's no real qualifier. They come in, I'm basing it off of kind of what's existing, that's been allowed in the past, and using that as a reference point. I think at least if we kick it to the board, from a legal standpoint, that precedent that may existed before will get reevaluated, because it is now before a different viewing body. And then they can have a determination differently than what has been done in the past because of the process being changed. That makes a little bit of legal sense.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a reason that we don't do that with the minor changes also? That it doesn't all go to design review?
You could, I can give you for
I'm just
instance.
asking for like consistency.
Sure. I can give you for instance, so today we have a windows, like literally somebody's put in a permit today for just replacement of windows. It's a like for like situation. Same thing with shingles or vinyl siding. Throughout the summer, you're gonna have probably 20, maybe 30 reshingling jobs. You could have that go to the design review board. That may start to get a little bit loading on their schedule. And if, like I said, if it's a like for like, that's generally where I hold the line. If you want to start doing, a metal roof versus a shingle roof, then we're going to have a conversation. But if it's a 3-dimensional roof or a 3-tab and you're taking it to 3-dimensional and the colors aren't, orange fuchsia or, purple neon, then there's usually a quick path for the approval process. So that way, someone that's doing a roof remodel or siding remodel doesn't have to wait 2 weeks. Well, it would almost be a month before they could actually get the project started, because there is a process to get on the design review board, have to submit it, then staff has to have the opportunity to put together a report. That report would then be submitted to the design review board. So the delay factor could be anywhere from, at a minimum, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even 4.5 weeks prior to their ability to actually start on the project. So the minor projects, I think as you're reading through here is I think windows, shingles, vinyl siding, things like that, so. But if there's a desire to pivot away from kind of what's
I
in here.
guess my question, how much time do you spend dealing with?
Not a lot. Terry will typically, like, he came in today, I said, they've got it all kind of drafted. Terry deals with it, and then he gives me the full presentation. They give me a material sample. I look at it. He handles most of the paperwork, actually all the paperwork. I do the last signature on it. So by the time it gets to me, everything should be in a nice, neat package. I got a material sample. I look at it. I look at the existing. I look at the new. Sign off on it. So probably all in all, maybe a 5-10 minute conversation. If I don't have any additional questions. There's been times where I'll have an additional question, need to give some feedback, need to get some more information for clarity, and then I task Terry to find that out, bring it back to me.
But I think with solar panels, we're starting to see an increase of usage considerations, and also, again, the bigger piece, I think, roof is a roof, but.
I guess what I'm asking is, because Sean's time is not in abundance, are these things that we could steer more towards committees to take some things off his plate, or free up some time in his schedule?
But does a reshingling job come to DRB anyway?
No, unless it's gonna.
Not right now.
Does it come to Sean? Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's
It's more administrative.
5-10 minutes of a conversation.
But if you have 20 or 30 of those, then it I don't know, I'm just asking
no.
if there's a way that we can try to
Absolutely.
free up some time for him. And also, in the wording of that, it does still say village manager, so maybe on the next draft, we can change that to city.
Good catch.
Also.
Good catch. We'll get that change corrected. Just to bore the conversation a little more, I view solar panels as an addition, not something that's pre-existing. And that's one of the other reasons I'm hesitant. This isn't something that's been built this way. This is an addition to something, and it really changes the material and the overall design of a house potentially. So that's one of the reasons. Like, if it's a gutter, it's a gutter. If it's a roof, the roof's already been there, it's already had shingles on it. But this particular situation,
It's also more controversial, I think, in neighborhoods.
Oh, for sure.
When someone puts a solar panel on and you can see the back of their house, a lot of people may not like it, so I think it puts it on the committee to have to make the decision versus you.
There's different options too. Some of them are a little more low profile than others.
Okay, so it's the first reading. This will come back to us in 2 weeks. If anybody wants to make changes to this, get with Mr. Stainerd. The last introduction of legislation is ordinance 09-2024, an ordinance to amend Chapter 1177 of the City of Johnstown's codified ordinances. And this has to do with signs. And this is an item that has been going to zoning for a while, and they're having to give amendments. Is that the right word?
Variances.
Variances. And so this is how a perfect process should work. They see the variances, it comes to us to fix it.
If you want to dive into this
Yeah,
real quick.
please.
So, as the mayor stated, anytime we get multiple variances for the same thing and then those variances are being granted, I think Ryan has also mentioned it's typically a time to readdress the codified ordinance. And that is exactly what happened at the last Planning and Zoning Commission. We had to grant a variance for this very scenario of a wall sign. It had been done in the past. MKSK came through with some deliverables as far as some real quick fixes on wall signs. I'll give you a bit of background and I'll try to be as brief as I can. So in the old ordinance, basically said only one wall sign per building. Well, if you have a multi-tenant building, you can only have one wall sign. Doesn't necessarily make sense. And some of that has to do with the wording of a building, what constitutes a building. But if you got a building and it's a multi-tenant building, it's a building. So we kept running into some issues. We had some of this in the downtown area as well as up in the shopping center area where you effectively have one building. So not to bore you with all the other details of it, what this effectively does is allows the potential for more than one wall sign per building based on unit rather than the building in and of itself. The wording is in red. If you have any questions, you can read through there if you have any concerns. There's some other provisions that MKSK also recommended, and I'll stop there for any questions you may have.
Basically, in a nutshell, I mean, a lot of businesses that are coming to town, this was something that was catching them up. They could have had their sign, been through the process just administratively, and been out the door, and on to do business fairly quickly. Signs are always an interesting issue that we go down a rabbit hole quickly in zoning. It seemed to be that way since before I got on there, and in the time I've gotten on there, it's the same way. You come up with something, your planners or attorney thinks it's a good idea at the time, it gets into practice, it's not such a good idea after you've seen it for a few years. And I say this all the time, like Sean said, if you're going to grant multiple variances, it's time to change your ordinance. So, in a nutshell, this will make sure that, signs in here, it says, signs will be above the front door but below the second story window. Anything else is gonna be a variance. Monument signs are gonna be finished to the ground level. We've had that in the past where monument signs, there's erosion that happens, things like that. This assures that it's to the ground level. That's clear. So if you're gonna have erosion problems, you have to fix that because your sign has to stop there. We're cleaning up the multi-tenant situation, and as I've said a couple times, we're trying to eliminate clutter and make sure, at least in our downtown area, we don't have a Times Square situation where there's just a lot of signs hanging out everywhere in multiple locations. We're gonna kind of clean that up, and in a couple years, we may find something that works even better and do it again, so.
Okay, anybody else with questions tonight for the first reading?
Ryan, how's the temporary signs work for open for lunch today and it's put out on the sidewalk? Is that included in this or?
Yeah, so we haven't really addressed those. I mean, so there is a term for those. And if Trevor was here, he could, if Trevor was here, he could probably explain it. But we've had that call out before. Like, we have a lot of mom and pop businesses, and they want to put out a sign that says "closed for the flu today," or closed because of a wedding. We have that happen all the time. Some of that stuff is just going to fall under common sense, zoning enforcement on Terry's part, and then some of it, we have things for temporary signage. That comes up in some of those multi-tenant buildings. Some of these multi-tenant buildings continue to, and I brought this up in our conversation, what constitutes a unit? And if you're splitting a unit further and further, who gets a sign, who doesn't? That's probably something we're gonna have to continue to nail down, I would guess.
I like the idea of a sign per door.
Yeah. Well, and how many times can we split that unit is a question I keep asking, because, yeah, eventually.
One
Yeah,
sign.
Yeah, one door, one sign, and that's gonna do this, so. But yeah, there are some other things like that that just fall under common sense zoning enforcement, but we do have language for temporary signage. We try to enforce that as much as possible. We see that a lot in the multi-tenants though, especially down 62 there. You get a lot of temporary signs because those businesses, there's a lot of them and they churn. So you do get those, and we try to enforce them as we can.
So what is the rule as it stands today?
I'd have to read it.
Gotcha.
I'd have to go back and read for temporary signage.
For temporary, so I
Like
believe temporary.
sidewalk signs.
A sandwich board.
Sandwich board, they can go through the process. I'll give you, for instance, there was a business today that had a number of banner things waving pretty largely. Those are not allowed. So they were notified that that's not allowed, and those were removed, hopefully. I haven't been driving down that way to find out. Hopefully you all can let me know if you saw them, and if you didn't see them, I guess they were removed. So, yes, those types of signs are not permitted, so we'll continue to enforce those. I'll buzz out an email from our codified ordinance when it relates to temporary signs to give you basically some reading material so that you can see what is and isn't allowed from a temporary sign standpoint.
You get a lot of yard signs too, and, depending on, the style I'm talking about, you get a vinyl sign that's on the metal framework, and those aren't allowed either unless they're in your own yard, obviously, but, they get put on public property or in right-of-ways a lot of the times, and we do have rulings for those too.
Yeah, there's the contractors are allowed to have signs up while they're doing the work, but then I'm gonna get really in the weeds, but then I'll pull back out and we'll stop.
Signs get you in the weeds in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that for only so many days or hours during the work's going on. Another example would be if somebody just wants to have a sign that says, I like Villa Pizza. It starts to be a freedom of speech thing because it's on their personal property. There's a lot of freedom of speech issues that are relative to this. So if somebody just wants to put up a sign that states their opinion, it's not necessarily a business sign, it's not an off-premise sign, but if somebody's advocating or promoting a business off-premise, that's an off-premise sign, then that can be regulated, that's not permitted. So I'll get you the long ordinance and you can just put yourself right to bed.
Need some reading
Absolutely.
material. Appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Come to zoning with any questions, feel free, we'll have a conversation.
That is the first reading, so we'll have the second reading in 2 weeks. We're going to move to other business. Does anyone have any other business tonight?
We have our continued discussion from earlier.
Yes. So how about we do this? How about we have Teresa research it, find out what our options are, and then we can talk about what's official and not. We have the actual legality of it. Does that work?
Yeah, I'm all for.
What's the continued discussion?
Oh, so what Jeff brought up, so
Oh, as far as
condensing-
block vote, okay.
Oh.
block voting, I'm for anything that streamlines our process, but also who decides what, what is.
What's
There needs to
confrontational,
be a
what's not.
dividing line, because, whoever gets that decision, if they say that's not an issue, but you think it's an issue, it's an issue.
Well, let's just pretend that we're all okay with it, and legally we can do it is the most important thing. It would obviously be things that are low on the impact scale. I don't wanna say they're administrative, cause that indicates our city manager would review it, but they're housekeeping kind of things.
So for example, at the end of the year, we have to do all the dates, set all the dates for the next year.
That's a good
Stuff.
example.
There's a lot of end of year stuff that we have to vote on that.
That would be on consent agenda, and if there's the city clerk puts the agenda together, we see it in advance. So if there's an item that's on consent agenda and Bob particularly wants to talk about that one in more detail, please pull this from the consent agenda because I'm gonna have more discussion on it. We would still have that ability to remove it if we felt, whether it's one or several, to remove that item from the consent agenda so you can have more detail. We would still have that ability to remove it. And I think we could even exercise it day of to say we want to remove it from
The new
consent.
rules of council requiring an approval of the agenda before
Yeah.
we proceed, that check's in there.
Right, there's another check, so you got it, we're usually getting the stuff Thursday or Friday before, remove it from consent.
Yeah, if we can define it, narrow the scope, agree to it.
And it would be an exercise of getting used to, from the clerk, of, well, what's consent agenda and not. It would take a little bit of time. I don't think there's any clear definition of this is consent and this is not consent agenda.
So we'll have her find out what's legal, what's not. If, come back to us, then we can have more discussion once we find out what's the
Yeah,
details.
and all it is just to block things so you can move through them quickly, is all. And if it saves 15 minutes every meeting, I'm all about saving 15 minutes. If it wasn't to save but a minute or two, Dave, to your point, what's a minute or two? But I think some meetings, we could probably shave off some time of not having to read them all. That was the intent of bringing it up, that's all.
Anyone else with any other business tonight?
Yes. Jeff sent an email today, and I just wanted to address that. Asking for a city planner, or a city manager report update. I think it's a great idea.
I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at that email I sent earlier today. Thoughts?
I think
Makes
it's
sense. We used to have, I think we used to do it, and
used
I
to
think
do it.
for time restraints a little bit, and then also because we've done a great deal of streamlining and giving specific direction over the last, I don't know, 3 to 6 months. I think that makes it much more functional for the village manager, rather than just coming in and telling us everything. He can reference the things that we think are important and anything of significance outside of that. I mean, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
We could use those 15 minutes up.
I like the report. I mean, and Sean doesn't have to read it off. I mean, it's just there.
No, if we have questions, like,
it's
it
just
would be
there
a
if you
part
have
of the
questions.
packet. We can have questions.
It's going to be his to-do list, essentially,
Right.
and what he's accomplishing.
Right.
He's just going to share that with the rest of us, probably.
Yeah, and I don't want to try to guide and direct what that report should be. It would be an ebb and flow, give and take. He gives it, and if it could just be an email correspondence back. We don't need to do it in council. Hey, Sean, in your report in the future, I would like more information, or whatever the case may be.
I like it because it creates consistency across the administrative, flow of everything.
Well, then
Because
we're
it may
in the
not
same
always be
direction,
Sean in that seat. So like I said, removing the name from the position, so we're just setting a standard for the position, which I think is important.
If you want me to comment, I'm completely fine with it. I used to do it fairly consistently. It became a time situation, just trying to run with all the other items. I still want to do it, and if it's an item of importance, I'm going to carve out the time necessary to do it, so that you all can have it. But I want to do it, just hasn't had that time ability. I think Bob identified it. Councilmember Orsini identified it pretty accurately. It was inefficiencies of, okay, sometimes the reports that I used to do were 2-3 pages long.
They can be shortened.
I feel like
I'll
this
try to
would-
shorten them.
Yeah, I feel like it's a one-pager,
It's fine.
Bullet points.
right? Bullet
Yeah.
points. I'm not looking for you to spend 2-3 hours on it, Sean.
No.
Right? It would just be some bullet points, and then it's probably easier if council is paying attention to stuff, right? That's our job, we could email questions back, and if it's something of elevated importance and we want to discuss it here or ask here, then the council member that wants to can do so. Or it can just be electronic communication going forward.
Yeah.
That'd be a little more efficient.
Yeah. Nope. I'll get it on there. I just pulled it up. So last year in January was when I started. Had one January, February, March, April, May, June, July. it started to fall off then. So obviously, the new council members didn't get to see any of that. So something we used to do, but like I said, with just time. But we'll get back to it. I think
I'm going
it's
to
necessary.
piggyback off that comment of
Is,
time.
is the second meeting in April give you enough time to,
Yeah, that's fine.
right? And then the consistency would be at the second meeting of each month there, because then it would be, I'm not looking for it,
Monthly process.
a monthly, right? Not every meeting, but just monthly.
That's fine. That's what I used to do. It was
Okay.
just a once a month report. So, nope, no problem at all.
good, thank you.
Yep.
One other thing, I'm going to piggyback off his time comment. And I know we've talked about this a little bit. We don't have to fully discuss it tonight. I just want to have it on the radar for us to think about. Teresa and Sean both attend almost every committee meeting. Is that correct? Almost every, or all committee meetings. If there's something that we can do to adjust how that is either, I don't know if it's written in the charter or how it is written, that it is not required for them to have to be at every committee meeting. I think we spent a lot of time interviewing and hiring people for these committees, and we should let them do their thing. Ultimately, that stuff still comes to us for approval. And for Teresa, you know, there are devices that will now dictate everything, and it will format, type it up, minutes, then she could review it, just to alleviate some of the pressure off of them. I think the time could be better spent on other things, more important things right now, so that's just my 2 cents to think about.
Are you researching something?
I was just looking to see what it said. And for him, it's attend all regular and special meetings of council with the right to participate in discussions, but not to vote.
It doesn't specify committees.
No, it doesn't. So,
My reading of the charter, committees were not addressed as far as staff participation.
provide staff support services for council and the municipal boards, commissions, and committees. So he provides staff support services for this. Okay. That does not
It's a
have
good
to.
idea to have the conversation, see how it impacts your processes, what you do, value, not value, what that looks like, and
Yeah, it's just, you know, if we can free up some of his time, I think that would, he could spend it better.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, as long as we're hitting everything that's in the charter and in sunshine law, I think we're good.
Just quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know a couple of us was talking earlier. I had fun the other day at the elementary school there, reading. I got to read in my daughter's class, so that was fun to do. And I know a couple of the other folks up here as well did, so I think that was nice.
It was great.
general,
It was
so.
great. I loved it. I cried.
Yeah, I can tell you from my perspective as being in the schools, the kids love it. And I know we have another event coming up that I know a couple people here are going to be speaking to the kids about professional development. I know it's kind of weird thinking about kindergartners and third graders talking about professional development, but again, understanding that there's different steps to stepping into certain realms of careers. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Looking forward to see how the kids interact, but also how the speakers interact as well.
Yeah. Be good.
A couple more things from my side.
go ahead.
I want to thank everyone here on the council. I want to thank the school board, Principal Wagner at the elementary school as well. We've been able to, from the council side, to fund Paula Rosser's memorial tree. And in addition, I have a verbal commitment from another entity that's going to fund a memorial bench. And looks like we have a very close process to get those both approved and installed at the elementary school. So I'm very thankful to the members of council to step forward and chip into that side. And once I get clearance on the bench, I'll announce that in next 2 weeks from now, meeting. Kind of piggybacking off of Wes's piece here, and definitely kudos to the Johnstown Chamber. The chamber event, the joint
It's
chamber
great.
event,
Yeah.
was phenomenal.
It was great.
It was great to mix in with those groups to see the interaction between Johnstown, Pataskala, and New Albany. Right?
Yes.
Am I missing any?
Yep.
That's all three.
I was like,
Yep.
all right. And again, great work on that. Great event. Well received by both the people. I milled around as long as they let me until they shut the doors down. But great event and great engagement from the Johnstown piece as well. I think our Johnstown businesses were some of the most talkative and engaging with the attendees. So it was very cool to see our businesses reaching out and working with those people.
I agree.
Nice suit, by the way, too. I saw the pictures of it, too.
Thanks.
Call you Don Johnson.
Wait, it was twice 1 week, I believe, right?
3 times a week.
3 times, all right.
The other one was the high school innovation lab ribbon cutting, again, across the board, to have Lieutenant Governor Houston in attendance, everyone that was in attendance as well, to see the offerings to the innovation lab there at the high school, but then also the mini innovation labs. There's even one at the elementary, to see what Dr. Wagner and the group is doing to give understanding and options. Dr. Wagner's speech to the team about employment opportunities with those businesses was phenomenal. I think it was a very well-received piece, both from the people in attendance as well as the people that were on the stage, to talk about the essentially almost apprenticeship-type programs that they're offering our high school students to get a career track into some of these opportunities. So we have our residents, our students, the children of our residents to have an inside track because they're funneling straight through what the Johnstown Monroe School District is offering. It's another phenomenal piece.
And I don't know if anybody saw the interviews on TV with some of those students. There was one that I remember. I think her name's Julie. Her interviews on TVs, she was just outstanding. Her mom should probably be very proud of her. She just did a fabulous, fabulous job. So. I guess her dad could be proud of her too.
Thank you.
2 more things. So in relation to Paula Rosser's passing again, she leaves a huge gap in the PTO piece. So I'm working on it with a couple people here, both on council, but if anyone listening has insight to a local business that may or may not have already donated into the PTO raffle for the PTO Carnival, I'd be happy to take, and work that up to kind of fill some of that void left by Paula. I've had a good handful of members from the Joint Chamber event. So I was able to get a couple committals there, so that's great. But again, the void left by Paula is definitely felt. I've been talking to people to help organize that, and they need some help to kind of run those down. So if there's any other options, let me know. I'll be happy to run those down as well.
Sorry to interrupt, but the carnival is not this weekend, but the following weekend. They are looking for people to help set up, tear down, and do some of the games. So if you're free that Saturday, let me know. I'll send you the email for volunteer email if you don't get them. But they are looking for extra people to volunteer.
Okay. My last piece, when are we going to talk about our homework about what is Johnstown?
Whenever anybody wants to. I would like to hear what you believe what is Johnstown.
Put that on the agenda for 2 weeks from now.
Teresa, can you have that?
We're still under other business. Just take a moment to thank our volunteer coaches for the JYAA 23-24 basketball season. It wrapped up, and our wrestling coaches and commissioners. They all did a fabulous job working with our youth. They are the future of our community, not just here locally, but in our Central Ohio area. Future leaders, future educators, et cetera, business owners. And want to also thank our volunteer coaches, softball and baseball, and the commissioners associated with those programs that have now begun underway, as well as spring soccer and spring soccer for boys and girls. And that commissioner, I don't know if I'm missing anybody else on the JYAA spectrum, but they put in thankless jobs and a lot amount of time that's never ever recognized on a level of importance that I think it should elevate to, because they spend a lot of time with those kids out there. So I wanted to take a moment to thank them for all they do.
Jeff, you made me think of something. We, for the first time ever, are sending 2 girls to state for wrestling, which is very cool. Kaylin Casto and Cortland Smith.
And they probably came up through the JYAA wrestling program?
I'm sure they did.
They did not. They are
Oh.
new, but
Okay.
put a pin in that. Next meeting, there'll be more to come.
Very cool.
you brought up a great point, Jeff, and it's something that I've said and I've heard other people say or agree to. It's all the same people. The children, the parents, whether it's through the schools, whether it's through JYA, or whether it's things that council oversees. It's all the same people. The level of intermingling, synergy, working together that we have today, I've never seen at such a high level. So anyone that has been discouraged or saw something they didn't like or any reason other than say, hey, get involved, now's the time. We have a synergy, we have momentum. This is the time for all the groups to pull together because it's all the same people. They're just doing different interactions in the community. So I just want to put that out there. JWA does a fabulous job for us. And I think we've got a lot of positive things happening. So if you're interested, get involved wherever it is. We'd love it.
Anybody else tonight? Hearing none.
That's why I gave Teresa a note to remind me. My apologies. Mr. Mayor, I had one item, just wanted to briefly vet this. I vetted it with a previous council, new council, so I've been asked by a particular, I'm gonna call it developer, but a particular attorney, or he's representing a client. I'll try to give you the quick background, and let me know if you have a different direction. Last council was pretty definitive in this path forward. We have a light manufacturing district that's somewhat restrictive. Last council came to my attention that this was done somewhat intentionally because of some infrastructure constraints that exist on specific parts of the town. So we once again have a request. Bob, you may be aware of this. I think we brought it up last year. Donnie as well, Ryan as well. We had an applicant want to propose wording changes to the light manufacturing district that would allow for a variety or a host of different uses. They didn't have a specific user, they just wanted to have the allowability. My assumption is they wanted to do a spec building. My assumption is actually based on actual data. They wanted to do a spec building, and then after they have the spec building up, be able to market that to a variety of different businesses. The issue that comes to mind, or that had happened in the past, is without knowledge of that specific business, like I said, there's infrastructure issues that exist on the northeast part of town, or just eastern part of town, southeast, however you want to slice and dice the quadrants, that if you were to have 300 employees or 400 employees getting off at around roughly the same time, trying to get through the intersection of 37 and 62 would have a probably significant impact to the quality of the residents that reside here in town, as they're also trying to navigate that particular intersection, whether it be for school or them getting home from work. We did have a company years ago, 31 Gifts. They'd had that very scenario. Great opportunity, great revenue, but at what cost are we willing to pay to potentially get those revenue dollars? Is the juice worth the squeeze? I've used that twice tonight. In the past, there's been no appetite to change that light manufacturing, to keep it restrictive. I've told this particular individual, if they have a specific company, that's a different conversation, but just to build a spec building and essentially write a blank check from a variety of different uses, there is a concern from staff's standpoint. If you all have a different desire, I'm more than willing to go down that path, but if you all want to consistently hold the line with what it is now and continue that message whenever I'm asked repeatedly, I'll say repeatedly, but it's usually from the same individual, maybe two different entities out there, I can continue to steer them in that direction. That at the current moment, unless you have a specific user, the conversation is going to be the same as it was before.
My thought on this is that we have to preserve our downtown. We want to make it something special. Adding more traffic right there, to me, is not what our downtown needs. And since there's no bypass, I don't see the reason that we need to add any more spec buildings to that area. There'll be areas south, I call it south of town, but towards our new annexation, that buildings can go. But I mean, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think we have, especially in that area, I think we have a comprehensive plan and an existing zoning that was pretty thoughtful. I mean, the rest of town, comprehensive plan, and the new one, if we ever see it, I mean, it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think in that area, I think everything's been pretty thoughtful and intentional. Variances are possible, but typically not likely.
My concern is that, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, we took the tour of the New Albany area, and there was a couple spec buildings sitting vacant. Why, I don't see the urgency to build more spec buildings here against what, like Ryan just said, that there's already existing, verbiage out there, outlining what that should be used for, to build another spec building upon speculation, right? I don't have the biggest appetite for that.
Fair enough. I was asked for them to do a presentation. I've redirected and I said, you have the ability to do 3 minutes in front of the microphone. Council doesn't have to give a response to this, but I didn't feel that this warranted a presentation because it wasn't consistent with the viewpoints of prior councils or your current viewpoint. So that's why I bring it up, just to confirm my suspicions on that. And now that I have general consensus, I'll convey that to those particular individuals.
This is a zoning matter, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. We have a very clear
It should go
zoning
through, it
code.
should go through zoning, right?
That is,
That is. Council should hear recommendations from zoning, and that's the process.
you hit, Mr. Orsini, the nail on the head. What I recommended to them to do was, there is a process if you would like to change the wording. There's an amendment process, and you can go through that particular process through the zoning board. Then after the zoning board gets it, then it does come to council ultimately for your decision, but it starts at the zoning level. And in my email back to them, I highlighted all of these processes and says, you're not without your due process. We're not taking anything away from you, but because the request was asked to do a presentation in front of you, I just want to make sure that I'm communicating that to you. That way you're aware of it, but I did direct them back to zoning.
I recommend highly to be very cautious about anything that gets out of the process and procedure set forth. If
People are gonna be pouncing.
If we set a precedent for that, or continue a precedent for that, the community is subject to the folks that sit in the seat and do not have the protection of the processes. And I think it's a critical step, and as we grow, the velocity and the pressure is only gonna increase.
I
So,
agree.
whatever it would be, there's a process that exists, use the process.
We've recently had interest from other businesses that were potentially a non-conforming use. We outlined the process. It's there. They can go through it. I mean, as we've said, even tonight, variances typically, I mean, we've set these laws in action for a reason. They've been thoughtfully done. Variances, unless you have a grander scheme, variances typically are not
And if there is a significant
given unless there's a
error
real
in the
reason.
process,
Yeah.
you could get that across in 3 minutes.
I did have one other thing. Nick Shaner, he's a pastor at Shepherd Church Johnstown campus, which is they changed their name from Faith Fellowship downtown. April 19th through 21st, it's called their Big Serve. They would like to be able to come to Johnstown and do whatever projects we need. If there are projects that need to be done in town, they are asking, whatever they are, they would like to help the city of Johnstown in any way they can.
April 29th through
19th through 21st.
19th through 21st.
Jack, do you have anything that people could do to help?
Well, in the past, fire hydrant painting is something that needs done in many sections of town. It's a low priority item compared to fixing water mains and digging up curb boxes and things like that. So, depending on the scope, I mean, the city can buy paint. I think we have vests. That is a project that we have trouble getting to that needs done.
I do it in my neighborhood. I enjoy it.
JYA might have a need for that. I'll need to get
Yeah,
their
they do
contact
volunteer days
information.
there. Two
Yeah,
questions for you,
I was gonna
Jack.
say, we
One,
have some projects coming up.
outside of dumping some paint somewhere it shouldn't be, that's the biggest exposure we could possibly have of an
That's
errant
correct. And
paint
like
job.
I said,
Okay.
we try to make sure everybody has a vest and,
And
so
what's our liability if someone gets hit by a car standing in the street?
that would be
painting
an
our-
attorney's question. have painted, different churches have.
I mean,
painted.
picking up trash on the path and stuff's a little different than potentially being in traffic. I just wanna make sure we're protected.
And trash pickup, there at the bridge at 62 and underneath there is another item that needs done that, again, we don't get to.
Well, let's see, maybe communicate with them, see what their situation is as far as, I doubt they carry their own insurance.
I'll find out.
What that looks like, but,
Okay, I'll get back with him. I just wanted, he'd asked me and I'd forgotten, and I just remembered to ask
Off
that,
the top
so.
of my head, but that's, now, I also know that we will be bringing in probably 100 cubic yards of mulch to remulch at the, I think this year it's at the Rolling Meadows Park. That's a lot of wheelbarrow loads up. And
That's a
then-
great project.
that's pretty safe.
Yeah, that's a good one.
When are you doing that?
Well. I
Many
was-
hands.
I was
April
actually
19th.
gonna get prices for mulch, but if
Yeah, it's
that is
April
a
19th
project
now.
That's what I'm thinking.
You could coordinate it
We'll
with them at the
coordinate
time
both.
they want to do it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I will get with him. Ryan, if you can get with me about JYA, if they have stuff.
Yeah.
I'll find out how many people they have and get them in touch with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, guys. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. I make a motion that we move to go to executive session to discuss confidential business information of an applicant for economic development assistance. This does include all council members and Mr. Stainert. We do not anticipate to come back for any other further business.
A second.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Dave Sealand,
Yes.
Albert Seaman,
Yes.
Jeff Clark,
Firm.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes. Who's? I just blinked out on it too. I have no idea.